Welcome back to the Empowered Eczema podcast. We have a special guest today. We have Miranda, who is a friend of mine and former client, and she created a product called Medisi, but she also has a history of having eczema. So today we're going to dive into her history and also how she came up with Medisi.
Yay, I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me on, Michelle. And let's jump into it.
What is your history with having eczema? Is it something you've had since you were a little kid, or what's that been like?
Yeah, I was born with eczema. I was actually born in Guam. And so when I was born, I had like a small patch on my chest. But as I moved to Oregon, it got worse over time. And so as a kid, I had the worst eczema ever. It looked like somebody took like a potato peeler to my shins, and it was just awful. And so that's kind of been my journey. And yeah.
And we actually worked together in your adult years. So did you have a period of time where your eczema went away? And I'm also curious about any medications you used as a kid and your experience with the dermatologist growing up. And then you ended up into adulthood with eczema and what that journey's been like.
As I said, yeah, I had it as a kid. And then as I got into like middle school, high school, obviously, like stress, hormones, things come into play. It didn't go away. I had it, on my arms and my neck. And so kind of trying to adjust by covering it up however I could, wearing stylish scarves or turtlenecks, just trying to keep it hidden, which probably didn't help, because I was covering it with like certain fabrics and cloths that made it worse and more angry. But at the same time, I was definitely using like tacrolimus and other steroid creams. Never got into like oral steroids at that point, but just would lather my skin in these creams. And if I stopped, it would definitely get like more angry. It would be more red, more itchy, more like oozy, which was awful. So yeah. And then after high school, I moved away to Arizona. And I don't know, it's like everyone's like in this debate of whether environment matters. But I definitely had a period during that time where I didn't have eczema, but I would get urticaria. So my hives were pretty bad. Again, 21, I was not dieting. I was like kind of doing whatever I wanted. So my body probably was just not getting the best like nutrients at that time. But yeah, it went away. COVID happened, and then I came home, and it was the worst like I had ever seen it since I was like way younger. And that's when I met you. So yeah.
And when you went to dermatologists and they were prescribing the steroids, do you remember what that felt like for you? Was it a positive experience? Was it frustrating? What was it like?
Yeah, I can obviously speak more to like, what was it, like 4 to 5 years ago, like COVID-ish time. It was just frustrating. I think back to like when I was a kid and my mom would have to do these appointments, but she wasn't experiencing it, right? So she couldn't really speak for me in a way that like she understood it. And so all she could do was do what the doctors recommended. But of course, like through my own research and like following your account and similar accounts, I learned like these things aren't good for us. But out of desperation, I still did the testing. I did patch testing, food sensitivities. I spent so much money on all these things. And like, you do get a little bit of like, oh, interesting. But they don't really break down what the data means and how it correlates to like, here's what you can do. Here's a process. Here's how to like, they're just like, oh, well, this is what it is. So I guess we're going to now give you oral steroids. And so I did end up taking, I actually don't know the name for it, but it was like a pill form of it. And I mean, my skin cleared up great. It was fantastic. And then I stopped and it was tenfold. So just that constant cycle and feeling misunderstood through like doctors, dermatologists, sometimes even naturopaths, they have the best intentions, but at the end of the day, like they want to help you. And when they're desperate to help you, they just give you the quickest solution. And so I think that's why when I discovered your account too, like I was so excited and like hopeful because you kind of simplify the healing process for those struggling with eczema and also underlying issues like the gut or candida. And so I think it's just so beneficial to have someone like you and hopefully other like, you know, health practitioners following suit to really understand like the root causes because it really helped me. And if I don't think we cross paths, I don't think I would be out of that kind of cyclical cycle of, you know, affected skin.
Yeah, yeah. So when we worked together, there was a supplement in particular that you felt like really, really helped your process. And of course, it's holistic, right?
Yeah.
It's stress management, it's this, it's that. But one supplement obviously stood out very much for you. Do you want to talk to me about that experience?
hmm Yeah. So when I first started kind of ignoring the traditional forms of healing through like the dermatologists and the doctors and stuff, I was going like the vitamin kind of supplement route. I was doing, you know, B12, vitamin D, chlorella, all those things. And it's not to say they weren't helping, but I think my body was so upset with me and my gut was just covered with bad bacteria and biofilm, all that. It wasn't doing as much as it could. And then you had showed me and introduced me to a supplement that I had never heard of. It was like, what is this? And I was so consistent with it. And after that point, I was like, whoa, like literally, I'm like, my skin is drying out, which is a good sign. And I was like, this is great. You know, I did do like the no moisture at the same time because if it's red, you shouldn't put moisturizer on it. So that was like a trick I also used. But it really felt like it went in there and it like cleaned me out to a point where I then could actually benefit from, you know, nutrient absorption from the foods I was eating. I was eating like eczema friendly foods. I was like going more regularly. My skin just felt definitely less like inflamed, and even like to touch the color like wasn't as red. It would go like red to white sometimes, but then it was just, you know, my normal skin color. So yeah.
Amazing. So with the supplement, you liked it so much that you now sell it basically. So
Yeah.
walk me through that process that you had in your mind. Talk to us a little bit more about the ingredients of the supplement itself and
Mhm.
what inspired you so much where you're like, hey, I have to sell this, like other people need this.
Yeah. I mean, when you are 28 years old, you have gone through the just suffering of eczema your entire life, and then you find this thing and you're like, this is this is a game changer. Like it may not be, you know, the end all be all answer. You still do have to put in the work of like eating clean and listening to your body and tracking your symptoms. There are things that, you know, play a part in that. But as far as like what supported me in my time where I really needed to like get to the finish line of like healing from such a like traumatic time, that was great. And so yeah, it was definitely like a aha moment of like I don't even care, like this is not an ego thing, like but if other people could benefit from something like this, like I'm going to put whatever I can into this and try to like make it so. And I think at the time when I was like looking for help or seeking guidance or looking online for products that would help me, there was nothing that existed that was like, you know, like you go and you shop at your favorite like store brand and you buy it because it means something to you. You know, a lot of the like supplements that I was using is just like a very generic look. I didn't feel like attached to the brand. I didn't feel like they understood eczema, but they were just like kind of trying to help everyone. And so I was like, you know, I if I could go back in time and if I could find a brand like Medisi that was inviting to those that are struggling with eczema, that was understanding, that did educate and like provide like a community in a sense of like, I don't know, kind of gives me a sense of purpose too in my own personal journey. So that's kind of, yeah, what brought me to just going for it. And I worked on it for about 2.5 years before I launched. So
And
it
you
was
just
not,
launched this summer.
Yeah. Slowly but surely. But yeah.
So the supplement that we're alluding to, because we haven't actually said anything specific here, it's related to when I was helping Miranda through her process, I used this. It's a combination of enzymes. And
Mhm.
these combination of enzymes really help to break down the biofilm of things like candida. So if you follow me on social media, you hear me talk about candida almost all the time. And so I was helping Miranda break down the biofilm. So Miranda, since you are working so closely with these enzymes and you formulated this, can you talk us through like one or two or whatever amount of the enzymes that really stand out for you and your understanding of what they do and all of that?
Yeah, I mean, there's like a ton of digestive enzymes in the supplement itself. One of the most popular and most known would be serapeptase. This really like supports gut health and reduces overall inflammation. A lot of the digestive enzymes that we did include do kind of the same thing. I think the beauty to the supplement as well is our phrase is basically transform the skin by healing the gut. And so essentially it's all targeted to healing your gut, but the awesome and most beneficial thing is like you do feel better and your skin looks better, especially if you're dealing with eczema. I've had a lot of people ask me like, oh well, the product is called Skin Renew, and I'm like, yeah, and they're like, but it helps the gut, and I'm like, yeah. And it is a little confusing, and I think part of that is just kind of understanding like my own like purpose and target audience. Like all these enzymes help people with eczema. So like for example, like amylase like improves your digestion and all those things. So if you're more interested kind of on that breakdown, because there's a ton of scientific terms and words that like I don't want to get into the weeds here, but you can check it out on my website.
Amazing. And I'll link everything in the description so you can check out her website and her Instagram and her bio and everything like that. There's it includes cellulase, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's interesting about, so from my perspective of things, I really like its ability to break down certain things. So for example, if you have candida, this is a little educational moment for those listening, you already know this. But if you have candida overgrowth, some of your symptoms are craving sugar, you want to eat after you just ate, brain fog, maybe some stomach issues. There's some symptoms that can point you towards the direction of candida, right? And especially if you're eating sugar and then you're having some pretty big reactions, there could be a connection there. And so when a collection of organisms is together, so candida is a fungus. And when there's a community of that fungus that's overgrown inside of your gut, it basically plastic wraps itself to your gut lining. And that plastic wrap's called biofilm. And so when I was diving into my candida course and doing a ton of research, one of the biggest mistakes people make when they're trying to heal from candida is they jump to the herbal antifungals before they break down the biofilm. And it's a huge mistake because you have to break down the biofilm as the first stage of things. Then cellulase that I mentioned. So serapeptase is really good at breaking down that biofilm. Then cellulase is good at actually breaking down the cell wall of the yeast itself. So it's killing candida and killing the biofilm. So essentially that's why I'm obsessed with it. And I wanted to make that very clear.
Yeah, basically is like a magical supplement that can do so many different things. So
I think the cool thing that I always think about as well is its ability to help with sinuses. So if you're somebody that's dealing with, so eczema, allergies, asthma are kind of lumped into this big thing of like allergic reactions or things like hives.
yeah.
And this supplement also kind of helps on that side of things as well. So it's like gut health, but it's also that piece of all of that as well. So clearly you all can tell that I like the supplement. So
Yeah.
if you guys are interested in it, we will put it in the description. But to end this podcast today, do you have any advice for someone listening who's just in the weeds and they're really struggling?
Uh, Number one, don't stress. I think my advice would be, you know, give yourself kind of be gentle to yourself. I know it's like frustrating and it's hard. And honestly, I'm like getting emotional just like even trying to think of advice. Because it's like, wow, I'm actually like gonna cry. It's actually like, it's a really hard thing to go through when like you are used to living your life a certain way and you feel confident and good about yourself. And then this thing that feels completely out of your control happens and you just feel lost. You're like, I'm trying to diet. I'm trying to, take my vitamins. I'm trying to do these things, but like take it one step at a time, seek guidance from like somebody who is like knowledgeable in their field, like Michelle, and take it a day by day, manifest like positivity, tell yourself, convince yourself like that you're still beautiful. Like I know it's sometimes hard to feel when your face is swollen or you're covered in like rashes, but yeah, just stay positive. Definitely like track your symptoms too. Like that has helped me a lot. Like obviously like there's going to be like instant reactions, but then there's going to be reactions that can happen up to like 4 to 5 days later. So being able to look back on those is super critical. Thankfully that I did that, I was able to like really quickly eliminate so many things that I really shouldn't have. Um, and yeah, another big advice would just be avoid coffee. Sorry,
What was that last one?
avoid coffee.
Avoid coffee. I agree with that 100%. Well, thank you so much for coming on today. Let's all thank Miranda. If you can leave a comment and let us know how you like this podcast. And I will see you all in the next episode. Bye.
Hi, thanks.